David Brewster here, new episode of 3 for All. This is 3 Chris Duarte Licks from 2006, and for those of you that aren't aware, Chris Duarte is a monster, powerhouse blues rock guitarist. He's from San Antonio, Texas. He's been on the scene since the late 80s. And somewhere on 1994, when he released the album Texas Sugar Strat Magic, his name and recognition blew up, and I definitely remember noticing him, and I thought, who is this guy? Because if you haven't heard him play, he definitely has blues and rock, elements in his style. But I'm also hearing elements of funk and jazz and some other things, floating around. Phenomenal guitarist. And just a heads up, but if you haven't heard Chris's album from 1994 that I just mentioned, Texas Sugar Strat Magic, check that album out. It'll blow your mind, especially if you're a blues rock fan, a Texas, blues fan, or a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. There's, all sorts of great things on that album. So definitely check out that album. And I've seen Chris in concert a couple times. I actually caught him, in '96. That was at a club in Bloomington, Indiana called the Mars nightclub, which is no longer there. And I also saw Chris open for Joe Satriani in 1998. And Joe was on the Crystal Planet tour. And both of those shows, Chris was just so intense. All this dynamics, sometimes he's playing very aggressively and very loud. And then other times it's whisper quiet and he's kind of brushing the strings, quietly. The licks in this lesson came from Chris's instructional video from 2006 through Hal Leonard called Exploration. And during that, it's like an hour long or, over an hour. But during that video, he's breaking down, licks and phrases and chord ideas, and he's jamming a lot, and he's showing equipment and tone, options and stuff like that. Really cool video. And this episode is a continuation of the Playing with Feel series that I've added to the 3 for All episodes here. So we're going to be looking at this dynamic playing, from Chris Duarte. So here we go. Alright, the first lick's this emotive blues phrase, and this is a great example of showing these dynamics of kind of moving between, loud notes and quieter notes. And we're in the key of B minor, and it's like this. One more time. So we're in B minor, B minor pentatonic right there. Got that really nice kind of glassy, strat tone. I'm using, position 4, and I'm also rolled back, on my volume control there on my guitar a little bit, just to, kind of remove some of that grit or overdrive, because it's got a little bit of, grit to it, but not very much. Right? So right there, we're basically, kind of moving back and forth between that B, D to B, and then you're sliding into the flat 5, right? And you're doing that, E, D back and forth 3 times. So after that little back and forth, you're going to grab this A, and you're going to bend that E up and back, and then go back to that D note, and then so it's kind of a standard blues phrase, but it's the dynamics that kind of makes it jump out or really stand out, because you're definitely like I said earlier, playing certain notes loud and other notes kind of quieter. And play with that, kind of play with the dynamics. And you can kind of choose like which notes you want to sound louder and which notes you want to have a little quieter. Next up is this bluesy slide phrase, and we're still in B minor, and it's something like this. One more time. So we're starting with these double stops, and he's kind of sliding into this B and D, and then slides off. And then he's grabbing this F sharp and D double stop, and then he's doing kind of interesting there. So you're doing this, and then right there you're going to slide into that E. Really cool. And right there at at the end, you're going to grab that D and then, really tastefully slide that E to F sharp. And once again, you're playing with the dynamics. The double stops are kind of loud. And then by the end of the phrase, it gets kind of quiet again. Once again, it's really important to play with the dynamics, how, hard or soft you're picking the strings. Because you got to think, as soon as you pick the string, as soon as you've done that, then it's really all on your fret hand, because, your picking hand really is just waiting until it starts picking another, string or group of strings. So really the feel aspect, it's both hands, but really the picking hand is just the pronounced attack. And then after that, it's up to your fret hand to caress or kind of sustain or vibrato, the notes that you're playing. So in the beginning, I'm picking a little, harder, and then at the end, I'm lightening up a little bit to get a little quieter. So play around with that. Next up is this blurry slip and slide blues scale phrase. Now we're in the key of D minor, and it's like this. Really cool. One more time. So right there, we're basically grabbing D and F, and I'm hybrid picking right there, but that D, F, and then this A, and then reach over and grab that F on the G string, and there's where I'm hybrid picking. And then when you go back to that A note, you're going to hop over to that G note, and then you're going to slide in and out of the flat 5, right? So right there, and after you do that slide back and forth to the flat 5 and back, grab that F to D on the D string. And then right there, after you do the slide, come down to that D, and you're going to basically bend that G up and then grab that A to D. Grab that D, then grab F, and you're going to basically just bend that up to the sky. So the first half, and then, and once again, play with the dynamics. Play certain notes a little quieter, and then certain notes accent a little bit more. I'm definitely accenting that hybrid pick note, right there too. Definitely very slippery sounding lick. I love stuff like that. So cool. Here's a bonus lick from this live footage, and it's an extended slip and slide idea, and now we're in F sharp minor. It's really cool. Something like this. One more time. So we're in F sharp minor, the F sharp minor pentatonic box right there. And we're starting with this. So there's your melodic phrase. So it's kind of sliding into that flat 5 temporarily right there. Reach up and grab this E. You're going to grab that E and then the flat 5 to the 4 like that. So that first half. And then after that little slide right there, there's a speed lick right here. And you're going to grab that E to F sharp, and then you're coming down, F sharp minor pentatonic, like that. And it's really fast. And you can definitely hear lots of players doing stuff like this, but Chris Duarte does, these quick little bursts of, scale runs like that. Really cool. So, there's a pause, and then that speed lick. And then after that, then you're hearing a double stop right there, and then so there's a double stop hammer on, and then slip and slide there at the end. So all the way through it kind of slow. And then that speed. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with 3 Chris Duarte licks from 2006. And definitely Chris is a very exciting guitarist and typically overlooked, it seems like, in the modern age. I know back in the 90s he had a lot of attention and people were talking about him. But then these days it seems like people don't really remember him or his music that much, and that's a shame. He's released like 14 albums or something like that, so he's a great musician, great player. And I love these dynamic, phrases where it really just draws your attention, where it's like, what's going on? When you hear something just consistently loud all the time, it's kind of like it's almost punching you in the ears or something. And, I can only take that for so long where it's like, okay, I need a break from all this just brutal, loud, guitar playing and music. And sometimes, I definitely enjoy these quieter moments where it gets, subdued, maybe an interlude or something, a loud song gets really quiet, or you're playing a solo and then all of a sudden maybe you're accenting things very aggressively. And then you back off a little bit and start, quietly phrasing things. And that really draws interest to what you're doing. So keep that in mind when you're playing with feel and playing with these dynamics. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.